Hello everyone, welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome. You found the right place. Tonight's story belongs to Sagittarius, to the one who is always moving, the one who is always looking at the horizon, the one who asks the big questions and means them, who needs the world to be vast and full of possibility, who feels most alive when there is somewhere new to go and something unknown to discover. And to the one who sometimes wonders, in the quiet moments between one place and the next, what it would feel like to simply stay. This is a sleep story. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, no horizon to chase tonight. Just close your eyes and let Freya's story carry you somewhere quiet. She is 25 years old. She is in the mountains of New Zealand, and tonight, under the most extraordinary sky she has ever seen, she is finally letting herself rest. Get comfortable, take a slow breath, and let's begin. Chapter 1. The tent was small and green and had been with Freya for 3 years. It had been to Iceland with her, and to Morocco, and to a music festival in Portugal, where it had rained for 4 days straight, and the tent had held together with the particular stubbornness of things that have been well made and well used, and have therefore earned the right to be trusted. It was patched in one corner with a piece of fabric she had bought in a market in Marrakesh. Dark blue, slightly the wrong shade, perfectly right. She wouldn't have changed it for anything. She had set it up 2 hours ago in the last of the light, on a flat piece of ground beside a stream that came down from the mountains above and made the kind of sound that running water made in very high, very cold places, clear and fast, and entirely indifferent to anything happening beside it. She liked that about water. Its complete lack of concern for human drama. The fire was small and contained, built the way her father had taught her when she was 8 years old in a forest in Norway, and had sat beside him while he showed her how to arrange the wood and tend the flame and leave the ground exactly as you found it. She had built 1,000 fires since then. The knowledge lived in her hands now, not her head. Most of the things she trusted lived in her hands, not her head. She was a Sagittarius. She had known this her whole life in the vague, slightly embarrassed way that people who didn't take astrology seriously still found themselves consulting it anyway, pulling up the descriptions at 2 in the morning on nights when they couldn't sleep, and reading them with the reluctant recognition of someone who had been accurately described by something they had decided not to believe in. The descriptions were always the same: freedom-loving, philosophical, optimistic, restless, always restless. She had been in New Zealand for 6 weeks. Before that, Peru. Before that, Japan. Before that, it was becoming harder to remember the exact sequence, which she sometimes thought was a sign that she had been moving for too long, and sometimes thought was simply the natural result of a life lived at the pace she preferred, which was always slightly faster than the world around her seemed to want her to go. The mountains here were unlike anywhere she had been. The South Island of New Zealand had a quality to it that she hadn't encountered before and hadn't found words for yet. A certain rawness, a geological youth, as if the land was still deciding what it wanted to be. The mountains were sharp and dramatic, not the ancient rounded mountains of Scandinavia that had been worn smooth by time into something wise and settled, but young mountains, aggressive mountains, mountains that still had something to prove. She respected that. She sat by the fire and looked up at the sky and felt, as she always felt on clear nights, far from any city, the particular sensation that Sagittarians were apparently known for, the feeling of the universe pressing in from all sides, enormous and full and completely available, and herself in the middle of it, small and alive, and absolutely certain that being here was exactly right, even when she couldn't have explained to anyone why here specifically and not somewhere else. It was always here. It was always now. It was always exactly right. Until it wasn't. And then it was time to move. Chapter 2. She had a notebook. Every Sagittarius she had ever met had some version of this. The journal, the sketchbook, the voice memos, the note-taking app full of half-finished thoughts and questions that had seemed urgent at 2 in the morning and slightly less urgent by daylight. The particular compulsion of a sin that lived in the mind as much as the world, that generated ideas faster than it could act on them, that needed somewhere for the overflow to go. Hers was a small green notebook, bought in Tokyo 3 months ago from a stationery shop that had made her spend 40 minutes choosing between 17 different shades of green because she had been unable to decide and had eventually just pointed at one and said that one and the shopkeeper had smiled in a way that suggested he had seen this before. She opened it now. By the fire. The last entry was from 4 days ago, written in the dark with a headlamp in a hostel in Queenstown, before she had decided that Queenstown was too loud and too full of people having experiences they had been told to have and had packed her bag and come here instead. She read what she had written. The question she kept asking herself, the one that had been following her for months now, across continents and time zones and mountain ranges, the way certain questions followed you not because you were running from them, but because they were genuinely difficult and deserved the kind of thinking that only happened when you were somewhere quiet enough to hear yourself. The question was simple. What are you looking for? She had written it in the notebook and underlined it twice, and then written below it. Not what you're running from, what you're looking for, because she had come to understand, somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd continent, that for Sagittarians, these were not always the same thing. The fire that sent you forward could be either kind, The fire of genuine hunger for what was ahead, or the fire of discomfort with what was behind. Both produced movement. Only one produced arrival. She had been moving for a long time. She was not always certain which fire was burning. She looked at the question in the notebook. She didn't write an answer, not because she didn't have one, because the answer she had was still forming, still finding its shape, the way answers did when they were the real kind. Not the quick ones that came immediately and sounded good and dissolved by morning, but the slow ones that took months and continents and 1,000 fires, and eventually, if you were patient, arrived. She was getting better at patient slowly. Chapter 3. The fire had settled into its middle stage, not the eager early stage when the new wood caught and the flames were high and dramatic and slightly unpredictable. Not the final stage when the embers glowed deep red and the heat was steady and contained and the fire had done its work and was simply holding what it had made. The middle stage, the fire at its most itself. Flames that knew what they were doing, heat that had found its rhythm, a light that was warm and reliable and had stopped needing to prove anything. She liked fires best in this stage. She was less certain about people. The people in her life were everywhere and nowhere. This was both a function of how she lived, always moving, always new places, always new faces, and something more specific to her, the particular quality of Sagittarian friendship that was warm and genuine and enthusiastic and slightly difficult to sustain across the distances she kept creating. She had friends on 6 continents. She sometimes went weeks without talking to any of them, not because she didn't care. She cared completely. In the sudden, intense way, she cared about everything, passionately, wholly, and with the genuine conviction that the friendship was real and permanent and would be exactly as she left it whenever she returned to it. This was usually true. It was also, she had noticed, something she relied on more than she perhaps should. The assumption that the things she left would wait. Most things waited. Some things didn't. She thought about her mother, who had called 3 days ago, and with whom she had spoken for 40 minutes about everything except the thing her mother actually wanted to talk about, which was whether Freya was coming home for Christmas, which was 4 months away, which was an eternity in Sagittarius time. She loved her mother. She had not answered the Christmas question, not because the answer was no. She genuinely didn't know what the answer was, which was its own kind of answer, which she suspected her mother understood and was patient about, in the way her mother was patient about most things related to Freya, with the particular grace of someone who had accepted years ago that her daughter was going to live a life that was hard to plan for and had decided to love her through it anyway. This was, Freya thought now, by the fire, one of the great gifts of her life. Being loved by someone who didn't require her to be different. She put another piece of wood on the fire. The flames rose briefly, then settled above her. The stars. Chapter 4. The Milky Way came out at 10. She knew when to expect it. Had learned the sky the way she learned most things, through direct experience rather than instruction, watching and adjusting and watching again until the patterns became familiar. The southern hemisphere sky was different from the northern one she had grown up with, oriented differently, full of constellations she was still learning, and it had taken her several weeks to stop feeling slightly wrong about it and start feeling what it actually was. A different sky, not a lesser one, just another version of the same infinite thing. But the Milky Way was the Milky Way everywhere. It arched across the entire sky from one mountain range to the other. Not the faint suggestion of it you could sometimes see from the edges of cities on very clear nights, but the real thing, the dense, luminous river of it, the actual arm of the galaxy that their small star and its small planets were part of. It was so bright she could see it reflecting faintly in the stream beside her. She had seen the Milky Way from the Atacama Desert and from the middle of the Pacific Ocean and from a rooftop in rural Mongolia, and it had never failed to do this to her. Stop everything. There was something about the Milky Way that operated on Sagittarians at a frequency other signs didn't quite access. She had read this once and rolled her eyes, and then thought about it later honestly, and concluded that it was probably true. The sign of the archer, the sign of the explorer, the sign that pointed its arrow at the farthest horizon it could find. It made sense that the thing that most reliably silenced it was the thing that made every horizon look small. The galaxy made every horizon look small. She lay down on the ground, not the sleeping bag, just the ground, the grass, cold and faintly damp beneath her, the earth solid at her back the way it was always solid, the way she sometimes forgot it was solid because she was too busy moving across its surface to feel what was underneath. She felt it now, the weight of her own body received by the ground without question. The particular stillness of lying flat and looking straight up, not at something, but into something. The sky not above her but around her, the Milky Way not a view but an environment, herself not an observer but a participant in something that had been happening for longer than her mind could hold. She was 25 years old. She had been to 23 countries. She had slept under this same sky, different patches of it, different latitudes, more times than she could count. And she still didn't know what she was looking for. But lying here, looking up, feeling the earth at her back and the galaxy overhead, she thought perhaps the looking was the thing. Perhaps for a Sagittarius, the point was never to find and stop. Perhaps the point was to keep looking, keep moving, keep asking the question, not because the answer was elusive, but because the asking itself was the life. Perhaps she had been worrying about the wrong thing. She lay very still, and thought about this. The Milky Way continued overhead, entirely unconcerned. Chapter 5. She got up when the cold became serious. Not the pleasant cold of the early evening, the refreshing cold that came off the mountains and made everything feel sharp and alive. The other cold, the deep night cold of high altitude, the kind that didn't ask permission, that moved through layers of clothing with the quiet determination of something that had always intended to reach you and was simply taking its time. She banked the fire. She washed her face with water from the stream that was so cold it felt like a reset, like something being set back to zero. She got into the tent. The inside of the tent was familiar in the way that only things which had been in many places together could be familiar. Not because it looked the same, it looked different in every light, but because the smell of it was consistent, the particular combination of the tent's own material and her own things, and the accumulated scent of all the nights they had spent together in various parts of the world. It smelled like motion. It smelled like herself. She lay down in the sleeping bag. She could hear the stream. She could hear the wind moving through the pass above, the particular sound of mountain wind that was different from sea wind or city wind, purposeful, directional, as if it were going somewhere specific and was simply passing through on its way. She thought about going somewhere specific. She thought about this a lot lately. The going had always been the point for her, the movement itself, the accumulation of places and experiences and people and moments. She had lived more by 25 than many people lived by 50. She knew this. She was not unaware of the privilege of it or the effort it had taken to build a life that could sustain itself in motion. But something had shifted somewhere on this trip. She wasn't sure when, somewhere between Peru and Japan maybe, or on the long flight from Tokyo when she had sat in the window seat and watched the sun rise over the ocean for 7 consecutive hours and had felt, for the first time in years, not thrilled, but tired. Not tired from the flight, tired from the moving. This was new. Sagittarians were not supposed to get tired of moving. This was not in the description. The description said, restless, always seeking, most alive when in motion. It did not say, sometimes the motion stops feeding what it used to feed, and you don't know what to do with that. She stared at the top of the tent. There was a small rip in the fly that she had repaired with a tape in Iceland 2 years ago, and the tape was still holding, and in the dark she could see it faintly by the starlight that came through the mesh inner layer. A small piece of Iceland traveling with her. She liked that. She liked that her tent was full of small pieces of places, repairs and patches, and the marks of use that were also the marks of everywhere it had been. Maybe she was like that too, full of small pieces of everywhere she had been. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was actually more than enough. Chapter 6. She had a list of questions, not written down. This was different from the notebook. These were the questions she carried in her head, the ones that had accumulated over years of moving and watching and thinking, the ones that didn't have answers yet or had partial answers that kept getting revised as she encountered new evidence. Things like, was it possible to be genuinely free and genuinely connected at the same time, or did freedom always require distance? Things like, what was the difference between running toward something and running away from it when the direction of travel was the same? Things like, did she actually love the moving, or did she love the person she got to be when she was moving? And if it was the latter, was it possible to be that person somewhere still? These were Sagittarius questions. She had come to understand this. Not all people walked around with this particular set of questions permanently running in the background. Some people had settled these things in their 20s, had made a choice and lived it, and found that the living of it answered the questions better than the asking ever could. She respected this. She sometimes envied it, but it wasn't her. She was the kind of person whose questions were a part of her, not problems to be solved and discarded, but something closer to what she was made of. The particular architecture of a mind that needed mystery the way some minds needed certainty. She was getting better at this, at accepting the questions rather than demanding answers, at understanding that the restlessness was not a flaw in her design, but the design itself. The thing that had taken her to 23 countries and put her in this tent under this sky, and was right now, at this precise moment, giving her a night she would remember for the rest of her life. The wind moved through the pass. The stream continued. The Milky Way continued to revolve overhead with the patience of something that had been doing it for longer than patience had a name. She breathed in and out. She thought about home, not a specific place. She had several places she called home, and none of them entirely deserved the name, and all of them partially did. She thought about the concept, the thing that home actually was, not an address, not a country, but a feeling, a particular quality of belonging that had nothing to do with geography and everything to do with who you were with or what you were doing, or simply sometimes what you were allowing yourself to feel. She had felt it here tonight, not in spite of the unfamiliarity, because of it, because there was something about being completely unknown in a place. No history, no expectations, no one's idea of you to live up to or disappoint. That occasionally allowed you to be most clearly yourself. She was most clearly herself tonight, cold and tired and full of questions, and lying in a green tent in the mountains of New Zealand under the Milky Way. This was home. This had always been home. She had been carrying it with her the whole time. Chapter 7. The wind gentled some time after midnight. She didn't know exactly when. She had been drifting, not quite asleep, not quite awake, in the particular state that came after a long day outdoors when the body had done its work and was ready to stop, but the mind was still turning things over, still completing its last few rotations before it too was ready to let the day go. She liked this state. Sagittarians were supposed to fear stillness. This was in the description too, the restlessness that made silence uncomfortable, the need for stimulus that could make rest feel like waste. She had felt this once. She remembered it, the agitation of early stillness, the impulse to reach for her phone or her notebook or the next plan, the sense that any moment not directed towards something was a moment lost. She didn't feel that now. She had worn through it somewhere on this trip, had sat with it long enough and in enough different places that it had eventually revealed what it was. Not a truth about her, not evidence that she was the kind of person who couldn't be still, but a habit, a reflex, something she had learned to do and could, therefore, unlearn. She was unlearning it, slowly, perfectly, over mountains and oceans, and 100 different sleeping bags in 100 different places. She was learning how to be still, not to stop. She would never stop. The archer didn't put down the bow, but to aim before she shot, to feel the stillness that came before the motion, the held breath before the release, the moment of perfect clarity that existed precisely at the intersection of where you had been and where you were about to go. She was in that moment now. The wind was very gentle. The stream was the only sound, but clear and continuous and deeply reassuring. The sound of water doing what water did, never stopping, never worrying about whether it was going the right way, simply moving in the direction that the land made available and trusting that the destination would take care of itself. She thought she could learn something from that. She thought she probably already had. Her eyes were heavy, not fighting it, not planning the next thing, not checking where she would be in a week or a month, or wondering whether the Christmas question would answer itself, or whether she needed to call her mother, or whether the answer to "what are you looking for" had gotten any closer tonight. It hadn't. Or it had, but not in the way she'd expected. Not as an answer, but as a question answered with a question, the way the best ones were. Not "what are you looking for," but "are you willing to be found?" She held this thought. The mountains held everything else. Outside the tent, the Milky Way continued its slow revolution. The Southern Cross, which she had finally learned to find, hung in the southwest exactly where it was supposed to be. The stream ran over its stones, cold and clear, and going somewhere she would never follow. She was a Sagittarius. She would always be moving. But tonight, just tonight, she let the moving wait. She closed her eyes. The mountains breathed around her. The stars moved overhead. The fire outside had become embers, warm and patient, and no longer needing to be anything except what they were. Freya slept, not toward the next horizon, not away from the last one, just here, just now, just completely, deeply in the place where the arrow rested before it flew. She slept the way the star moved, slowly, Surely, going somewhere, always going somewhere, but in no hurry to arrive. Somewhere in the mountains of New Zealand, a small green tent is glowing very faintly in the starlight. The fire is embers now. The stream is still running, and Freya sleeps. The notebook is closed. The questions can wait until morning. She is exactly where she needs to be. She always has been. Good night, Sagittarius. Safe travels.